In a new book this week, my next guests are talking to us about how having kids affected their marriage. Now, you might recognise Anna Whitehouse. She's got 200,000 followers online. She's known as Mother Pukka, the mother behind the hugely successful parenting blog.
So, which colours do you want? Take them all, just pop them in. Empty. Anything that could give you an extra 5 minutes. Because the problem is, when you have a toddler, you've got this low-level fear that they're imbibing bog cleaner in the background. So you've just got to contain the child, so then you can edge back quietly. Don't say anything. Don't make it clear that you're reaching for a magazine, and breathe.
Well, Anna and her husband Matt are here, and their new book is called Where's My Happy Ending? I love the title of this book. It's what we all want, isn't it? We all want a happy ending. We all want things to be lovely. But, you know, when we get married or we move in with somebody, we've got huge expectations. It's all going to be gorgeous and fluffy and great.
Well, exactly. But no one really talks about that part.
No.
I think we'd got to the stage that a lot of people get to. You've kind of done the grown-ups list. You've got a job.
Yeah.
You've had some kids, maybe. You've got married. And there, the story typically ends. That's where the fairy tale normally finishes.
Yeah,
but
it's
actually,
like Snow White. She toddles off and lives happily ever after.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But what really happens then, you've got 40 years opening up ahead of you.
And we say, like, on our wedding day, like, our wedding day is the best day of your life. And it's like, what happens after that?
Yes,
like,
that's the best. That's you peaked.
It's
Yes.
like you go from
Downhill.
you go from I do to till death do us part, and you're like, what happens in between?
For sure. And that's what's so good about this book, because you're so honest in there. Because I think most relationships, you know when people say we never have a crossword? I never believe that. Or we never fall out. Or we never feel like packing our bags and toddling off. I mean, I think at some stage you do. All of us do.
And I think that's completely natural, right?
Yeah,
I mean,
I think so. Even in the most loving, caring relationships.
Exactly. I mean, it's one of the things that came up in the book. We spoke to lots and lots of people about this, and probably one of the most interesting was, I think, the whelk fisherman that you spoke to.
Oh, do tell.
So he's the UK's oldest fisherman, lives in Whitstable.
Right.
And I went to interview him. He'd been married for 70 years.
Wow.
So that's quite a good innings. And I said, so what's the key to happiness in or out of a relationship? And he said, stop expecting your partner to save you, to be your one and only, to be together forever. Be together today and don't take the rest for granted.
What a wise man.
You know, and we have all this terminology like, he's my one and only, he's my life lobster. No, it might just be for today. So just don't take that for granted.
Yeah, and you've got to work at it. That's what comes across.
He said,
very much
let
in this.
other people save you.
Sure.
You know, not just your other partner.
Yeah, and it's about maybe relying on yourself a wee bit. And in a way, I mean, there's an article today. Holly has been talking to us, Holly Willoughby, and she's been saying, you can't win if you're a woman. If you're a stay-at-home mum or if you're a working mum and trying to balance and trying to juggle and all of these things, nobody's going to give you an award. And it's hard.
Yeah.
It's tough. It can be.
It is. And, I mean, guys don't get the same level of criticism, I don't think. Whenever I've worked in an office, if I've said I'm off to look after the kids, it's almost like I get a round of applause.
It's like,
people are amazed. What a wonderful man you are. Isn't that very kind of you?
Amazing.
Daddy daycare.
Exactly.
I can't hear daddy daycare again. It's like he's parenting.
But we talk about this in the book. There's a chapter on how that domestic bit sits, and there's a big movement now at the moment where something like one third of straight couples in the UK, the women actually earn more than the men. So the woman earns more than the man.
Sure.
But people tend to lie about it quite often, we discovered in our research, because they're a little bit sort of ashamed of it, and they have this idea of what things could look like.
Right.
But actually, that's not always very helpful.
No, not at all.
And my sister married her wife 2 years ago, and she said the biggest change in our relationship is that there's no expectation of who earns the bacon and who puts the bacon on the table and who cooks the bacon. We all just do the things.
Yeah,
whereas,
it should be.
you know, there's kind of these expectations of man brings home bacon, woman cooks bacon. It's like, no, we're out with that. And that's where I think there's quite a lot of change and tension.
And sometimes that can be difficult. That can be hard to adjust to that. You also talk about something that's very interesting, which is flexible working hours. Because I know you two were in Holland, where that was fine, you know, that was allowed. And then you come to the UK and all of a sudden, oh, I can't do that anymore. And that flexibility, there's little pockets of enlightenment around the country, but generally it doesn't happen.
We launched Flex Appeal, which is our
Yeah,
campaign for fighting for flexible working for everyone.
Yeah.
And it was in a moment where I just was coming back from work and I'd left work at 4:59 p.m. and said, I'm so sorry, I have to go and pick up my child. Can you imagine saying, I'm sorry, I have to go and pick up
a child that is waiting there. And I got told off, I remember, by nursery. They're lovely, lovely, wonderful people.
Yeah,
but there's a structure to it.
Of course.
And I was charged £1 a minute after 6, and I was sat on one of those tiny primary coloured chairs meant for an infant and kind of told off. And I just thought, this isn't my fault.
Yeah.
This is the system. And that was when we pushed back together, saying this isn't for mummies who want to see more of their Weetabix smattered children. This is for dads who want to dad. And you know, I think we heard from one guy who said his boss said, well, you know, can't your missus do that, when he put his flexible working request in? And he was like, no, she's a brain surgeon. She's got things to do.
Yeah, she has got things to do. That's a brilliant analogy, isn't it? It absolutely is. Do you think a happy ending is possible, though, if you work at it?
Not if you look at... It's not compared to Disney.
Right.
I think this is the thing. We've been sold 200 years of fairy tales about what it should look like. And one of the things that I think really came through for us, because we spoke to so many different people, we spoke to a sex worker and her gigolo husband, we spoke to celibate monks who were living in monasteries, we spoke to gay couples and straight couples and thruples and people who decided to marry themselves. And everyone's idea of happily ever after is a little bit different. And if you're looking for that perfect fairy tale finish, I think you're always going to be disappointed.
And I married Matt after we'd suffered 5 miscarriages. I didn't marry him on our wedding day.
Right.
You know, I think there's
that's a really good point.
misconception of where you unite with someone, and it definitely wasn't with all the frippery of that day. It was sticking together when you're in many pieces.
And putting yourselves together again.
Over and over.
Yourself together again, but also as a couple as well. It's a cracking book. It's got so much common sense. It's also funny, which I like. There's a lot of common sense, which is great. Thank you both so much.
Thank you.
Where's my happy ending?
Where is it?
I always imagine Snow White in a corner with bottles of gin, thinking, what did I do? I'm crazy. Thank you.